Workers continued to build a concrete wall on Sunday along Israel's side of the border with Lebanon, a day after the Lebanese presidency said the country will complain to the United Nations Security Council over the wall. It extends beyond the UN-mapped Blue Line, which separates Lebanon from Israel and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, according to the presidency. An Israeli military spokesperson on Friday denied that the wall crossed the Blue Line, but a spokesperson for the UN Secretary-General said the wall has made almost an acre of Lebanese territory inaccessible to the local population.
We underscore that the Israeli presence and construction on Lebanese territory is a violation of Security Council Resolution 1701, as well, obviously, of Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Adding to the tensions, Israeli forces opened fire on United Nations peacekeepers in southern Lebanon on Sunday, in an incident the UN peacekeeping mission described as a serious violation. None of the UN forces were reported wounded. Israeli soldiers had opened fire on 2 suspects in the El Hamamaz area near the Israeli border, only later realizing that they were UN peacekeepers, the military said in a statement. The military said the peacekeepers were misidentified due to poor weather conditions, adding that the incident was under review.
US President Donald Trump on Sunday urged Republicans in Congress to vote for the release of files related to Jeffrey Epstein. This Truth Social post marks a reverse on Trump's stance around documents linked to the late convicted sex offender. And it came after House Speaker Mike Johnson said he believed releasing the files should help quell allegations Trump had any connection to Epstein's abuse and trafficking of underage girls.
I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Questions around Trump's ties to the disgraced financier have followed him, even on his recent trip to the UK. Although the pair were photographed together decades ago, the president said the 2 men fell out before Epstein's convictions. Emails released last week by a House committee showed Epstein believed Trump, quote, knew about the girls. However, it was not clear what that phrase meant. Trump has since instructed the Department of Justice to investigate prominent Democrats' ties to Epstein. And the battle over these files' disclosure, a subject Trump himself campaigned on, has opened a rift with some of his allies in Congress. Trump late on Friday withdrew support for US Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene after her criticism of fellow Republicans on issues including the handling of the Epstein files. Democratic Representative Ro Khanna said on Sunday that he expects more than 40 Republicans to vote in favour.
I got some cloth from under the rubble, wrapped myself in it, me and the girls. We made a shelter. We sat and sheltered ourselves. We sheltered ourselves in them due to the cold, due to the water, because the cold is strong and the wind was strong. We felt like no one is looking at us. No one is listening to us, no matter how much we talk. No one is listening to us. I want my voice to be reached. I want someone to listen to my words, someone to answer my call, someone to fulfill my needs, mine and my children, mine and my girls. I need something to shelter me, something to keep me warm from the winter's cold.
Japan is working to cool tensions with China after comments about Taiwan sparked a warning by Beijing to its citizens against travel to its North Asian neighbor.
Recently, Japanese leaders have openly made blatantly provocative remarks concerning Taiwan, which has seriously worsened the atmosphere for exchanges between Chinese and Japanese people and posed significant risks to the personal safety and lives of Chinese citizens in Japan. The Ministry of Culture and Tourism of China solemnly reminds Chinese tourists to avoid traveling to Japan in the near future.
The dispute erupted after Japan's newly elected Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, openly raised the possibility of a Japanese military response to a Chinese attack on Taiwan, a topic earlier administrations steered clear of to avoid provoking Beijing. Senior Japanese diplomat Masaki Kanai arrived in China on Monday to meet his counterpart Liu Jinsong in an attempt to soothe the tensions, according to Japanese media. Kanai is expected to stress that Takaichi's remarks do not mark a shift in Japan's security policy and urge China to avoid further damaging ties. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kihara on Monday said China's travel warning is, quote, incompatible with the broad direction of promoting a strategic, mutually beneficial relationship confirmed by the leaders. Later in the day, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson said, quote, the wrongful remarks made by Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi regarding Taiwan have deeply hurt the sentiments of the Chinese people and severely deteriorated the atmosphere for people-to-people exchanges between China and Japan. The ministry confirmed that China's Premier Li Qiang has no plans to meet with the Japanese Prime Minister on the sidelines of the upcoming G20 summit in South Africa. Tourism-linked Japanese shares tumbled as the diplomatic row deepened. Isetan Mitsukoshi, a department store operator with substantial ties to Chinese visitors, sank 10.7% and is poised for its biggest drop in more than a year. Tokyo Disneyland operator Oriental Land lost 5.9%, and Japan Airlines shed 4.4%. Chinese companies with exposure to the Japanese market also suffered, with shares of software maker Linkage falling 3%. Beijing's travel boycott of Japan could result in an economic loss of about $14 billion annually, reducing the nation's real GDP by 0.36%, according to Nomura Research Institute's chief economist.
A new rare earth crisis could be growing, and it's got some global businesses worried. The element Yttrium faces Chinese export restrictions, which has led to fears of shortages and surging costs. It's used by several major industries like aerospace, energy and semiconductor production. It's needed for specialty alloys found in engines as well as coatings to protect against high temperatures. China is the main source of the element, but Beijing restricted exports along with 6 other rare earths in April in retaliation for US tariffs. Industry hopes for a more reliable flow of minerals were raised last month after a meeting between US President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, but the dispute hasn't been fully resolved. While China has since paused some of its rare earth restrictions, its April controls remain in place. It's raised questions about access for US industry without a comprehensive deal between Washington and Beijing. Sources have said the controls require exporters to obtain licenses from Beijing and made it difficult to get yttrium out of China. They added licenses issued so far have been for small shipments, and there are still long delays getting material delivered. Data has shown European prices for yttrium oxide are up 4,400% since January. One leading US aerospace trade group said yttrium was essential to the world's most advanced jet engines, and it was working with Washington to expand domestic supply. Sources also said shortages are a major concern for the semiconductor industry, where yttrium is used as a protective coating and insulator.
I've just sort of spoken on the phone to a resident in tears. He's lost everything, all of his possessions. He's lost his home, so we're going to try and help him to rehome him. The businesses are they're just not going to recover before Christmas. It's dreadful.
This is what community spirit looks like. They've all turned up to help us sort our stock out, clean our shop, etc., etc.
We have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
A verdict of death for Bangladesh's ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on Monday.
concluding a months-long trial that found her guilty of ordering a deadly crackdown on a student-led uprising last year. Hasina was not present in court and has been living in exile in New Delhi. It's the most dramatic legal action against a former Bangladeshi leader since independence in 1971. Prosecutors had said that they had uncovered evidence of her direct command to use lethal force to suppress the student-led uprising. A United Nations report said up to 1,400 people may have been killed during the protests between July and August last year, with thousands more injured. 78-year-old Hasina was given a life sentence under charges for crimes against humanity and the death sentence for the killings. In response, Hasina said the ruling has come from a, quote, rigged tribunal presided over by an unelected government. Her defence argued that the charges were baseless and politically motivated. Bangladesh's Domestic War Crimes Court sentenced her amid tight security ahead of parliamentary elections expected in February, in which Hasina's Awami League party has been barred from contesting. Before the verdict, protesters swarmed the estate of her father's home in a standoff with police. Bangladesh has been tense ahead of the ruling. Over the past few days, there have been 30 crude bomb explosions and dozens of vehicles have been torched. Bangladesh has been governed by an interim administration, headed by a Nobel Peace Laureate since Hasina fled. Hasina's son and advisor, Sajib Wazid, told Reuters on the eve of the verdict that they would not appeal the verdict unless a democratically elected government took office with the Awami League's participation.
Samsung says it will invest hundreds of billions of dollars at home and expand its chip-making capacity amid the global boom in artificial intelligence. Samsung and Hyundai were among major South Korean companies to announce domestic investment plans on Sunday after a U.S. trade deal with South Korea sparked worries that it may weaken local manufacturing. The deal, finalized on Friday, includes a pledge by the country to invest $350 billion in U.S. strategic sectors. In a meeting with business leaders on Sunday, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung said he was concerned that pledge may lead to domestic investment shrinking. He asked the companies to consider putting more money into their home country and suggested they consult with the government to make effective use of the $350 billion U.S. investment package. As part of Samsung's plan to invest some $310 billion at home over the next 5 years, its electronics arm said it will add a chip production line at its complex in Pyeongtaek. The P5 plant production line has been delayed since late 2023 amid slowing demand for chips for smartphones and PCs and oversupply, according to public company filings. But a global rush for AI chips has tightened supply, with semiconductor prices now surging. Samsung Electronics this month raised prices of certain memory chips by as much as 60% compared to September, sources told Reuters. Samsung said mass production at the plant, part of the world's biggest chip complex, will begin in 2028.